It is one of those series that when you sit down and put it on paper, it is something that will give a smile from left ear over to right ear. The prize is very simple winning this championship. You get yourself a space in the PT Autosport Aspiring Driver Shootout. Once you put yourself through that and you win that shootout, you've got a seat worth in excess of $250,000. It all starts here with your PT Autosports eSeries, and it's here for your second season, starting at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, sim racing fans around the world, here to the Global Sim Racing Channel. My name is Jake Sperry, and alongside me in the commentary booth for this one is Ossian Puhaka. It's Christian Deploy who's in the director's chair, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard as we sit ourselves here in Loudon, New Hampshire, getting ready for qualifying action to take its hold. But before we get ourselves into play with these wonderful Indy Pro 2000 PM18s, let's take a look at this circuit, get an understanding of where our groundwork is laid for the start of this championship with our GSRC track guide.
New Hampshire Motor Speedway, sometimes referred to by the name of the town that hosts the track, Loudon. It's also usually referred to as a 1-mile oval, but the actual track length is just a few hundredths more than a mile. The facility as we know it today opened in 1990, and a lot goes on here. IndyCar and kart cars were an early fixture here at Loudon, and they were fast on this paperclip style oval. And while this still shows up on many IndyCar league schedules, the real-life IndyCar doesn't come around right now, but they always flirt with the idea. NASCAR, though, has given itself a huge presence here. The Cup Series has had some interesting races over the years. The Grand Nationalist Series also makes a yearly trip with the Cup Series. The trucks don't run here right now, but they have in the past. Both East and West ARCA Tours make the rounds, and NASCAR's Modified Series featured 3 races at New Hampshire. Even the Canadian NASCAR Series comes across the border to race at the Magic Mile. The track is known for being mostly flat, but since 2002 has featured progressive banking from 2 to 7 degrees. That's led to a little bit of multi-groove racing thanks to the paperclip style and as the track surface ages in the harsh New England winters. Long straightaways mean you have to get on the binders hard, but your lap times are really dependent on when you can get back on the throttle again on corner exit, while keeping that rear end planted. Will magic happen on the Magic Mile today? Stay tuned here on GSRC to find out at New Hampshire Motor Speedway.
One of the more unique ovals when it comes to the United States and when it comes to great racing. This track only has itself a 1-mile radius around as you got to try and work it. But Ozzy, the big king today is going to be about how little banking there is on the outside. Just 2 degrees of banking down at the bottom and 7 degrees up at the top.
Yeah, and it's a different banking as well, Jake. So you need to approach 1 and 2 differently than 3 and 4. And despite the track having plenty of width, it's a wide track, but that can really catch you out. You can understeer so easily, especially with these open wheel cars. You're right behind the other driver, you're going to wash out on the exit of the corner, and that wall, it's a safer barrier, but doesn't have much give in terms of damage control. So if you run into it, your day is more or less over, so you have to be really careful. It's a very unique oval, but an excellent choice for these cars.
It's one of the more unique road courses in terms of road ovals out there in the world, but we are focused very much on the oval here today and the challenge that these drivers will all have to try and navigate through. It's a really large field, as we'd expect to see for an E-Series like this, and to get the biggest challenge forward. But the understanding is going to be about what makes this series so difficult, and the big one is that these drivers do not know what car they're driving and what track they're driving as they go forward. We take a look at our race details. It's the first round of 5 championships rounds. You got 2 races each, so that's going to be a 10-race championship. And you're looking around at it, they've had 1 hour to get themselves prepared at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. For those, there are a couple of oval specialists in this field. They'll be smiling from ear to ear. For everyone else, they'll look at it and go, oh, this is damage limitation in terms of we now need to try and deliver at the other 8 round races of the season to go and get the best result they can.
Oh, absolutely, Jake. You see the details right there on the screen. But something you can learn in practice, the track is, to be honest, not that difficult to learn in terms that it's an oval. It's got 4 left-hand turns, and it's got very little banking. So in that sense, it's familiar to the road course drivers as well, to an extent. But what you can't really learn to do properly in practice is race situations, how the pack is going to handle, how are you going to actually race here, race for positions, what is the best place to pass in, how do you time your passes, all of those things which oval drivers should be familiar with. That said, a lot of the oval experience in this field with the likes of Garrett Maines, Benjamin Nelson, those guys, they have the experience from big stock cars, from the peak antifreeze series, Oval World Championship, and this is a very, very different car. It handles very, very differently, and it's a different dynamic as well. Certainly, you can't use your bumper the same way.
No, you really can't here. It's going to be a lot different when it comes to who's going to put their bump drafting feet in, especially when you've got that front nose. They don't want to be disrupting the flow going over the front wing. Those drivers who have been affiliated or involved this season, for example, Nate Stewart in the Coca-Cola iRacing eNASCAR series, he'll certainly be a driver to keep a good focus on as we focus with Trey Drawhorn out there, who is running right down underneath the apron to try and get as much time as possible with these 4 laps, and they've got to get the tyres into a working window. The good news today about the track conditions, it is hot out there on track. In what we call British money, it's 48 Celsius. I'd put that up at about 130 Fahrenheit plus out there at the moment in terms of track temperature. It is going to be a case of these drivers are going to be getting their tyres up to temperature pretty quickly to go and attack, as those first times are going to be starting to find themselves on the board. And I think Drawhorn running down underneath the apron is just hoping to get his first times in and be quite happy with the work he's managing.
Very much so. Drawhorn there finishing another lap. It's going to be interesting to see the strategies approaching qualifying. Some of the more savvy guys could be doing a couple of slow laps maybe to try and bring up the tire to temp. And you can see Drawhorn there and just losing it in the middle of the corner, wiggling over the middle where the gradient changes and ending up nose first into the barrier. Should still have one qualifying lap, but I'm not sure if he can improve on that or not. So we jump with Samuel Burnett.
Yeah, so I think by going underneath the apron, those lap times were certainly not counting, and as such, we haven't seen anything come up on the board just yet, trying to put those times in. So here is Sam Burnett looking to try and get his launch through on his second lap, and I think actually what's quite important here to remember is it says it's 4 laps, but it says 4 clean laps are required. So this would very much be the Indy 500 method of qualifying, where you've got to put 4 laps together on the board here. And the understanding is that your best 4 times come together, and I think it will take an average of the 4.
Yeah. So that's even more important. So you have to be right on it from the get-go. Anton Schopler with the fastest time so far, but that's just a single lap time, so we'll have to wait and see about the results there later on. Riley Snasny following him as well. So some drivers taking it right from the get-go to the qualifying, other drivers waiting a little bit, maybe for the conditions to change. Remember, even a little cloud cover over the sky will immediately, of course, block the sun and make that track just a little bit cooler, which at these temps is actually working in your favor, in that the track is going to be just a tiny bit faster. So those experienced wily guys are looking for every single advantage you can get, because you'd rather start in the top 5 than, say, outside of the top 20. Just going to make your race so much easier.
You'll be seeing up on the top of your screen the fastest laps being done in this qualifying session. You'll see over on the left-hand side that the times are set by the average of the 4. Benjamin Nelson, the quickest of them at this stage, on a 28.0. Aaron Ramon in second, and Bryce Rodriguez finds himself in position number 3. So he'll certainly be in a good place to start these qualifying sessions at the moment, knowing that there is still a long way to go, as the likes of Nate Stewart goes second fastest on a 28.094 average. Dalton Zavadil at the moment still making his progress round on this, his final lap. So he's done his lap times at the moment. He's got a 28.4, a 28.4. This will be a 28.2 as he goes around, so he'll need one one more clean lap, but I don't think he's going to get that. And as such, he's going to be in a little bit of trouble there with his times. And I think a lot of drivers would have been caught out by the qualifying method here, realizing they've got to try and get themselves 4 good lap times on the board, and sometimes 4 lap times here. At the moment, someone like Dustin Yang, for example, who's got a 28.7 down as things currently stand, will have a really nice position of row 6, 12th on the grid, if he gets himself those laps and they count towards the end. So this is a really important one. Patrick Hingston we focus on, who's been lightning quick when it's come to open wheel.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And you can see the technique there, just not quite lifting it up to the wall, doing very good, very consistent lines there. But these guys who started their qualifying runs later, they also have the advantage of knowing that, okay, what I need is a clean run first and foremost. Those who are waiting can now see the times that other guys are doing, see roughly that, okay, it's not going to be a total disaster even if I'm slow in the qualifying, so to speak, compared to the top of the field, as long as I can get those times down. Because as it looks to me right now, even you just get 4 clean laps, you can still start around 15th, 16th, 17th in the field, which is not a total disaster. So what I would do in this situation myself personally, I would just try the race setup. I would just...
Yeah, so I would agree with you there, because you've got to effectively bleed in the setup, and we're seeing Matteo Kunze there starting to really get himself moving forward and hoping his times works. We saw Hingston go to 8th place, drops down now to 9th position as the times continue on. Spencer Schmidt now up into 4th position, and these drivers now are really hoping that it's all going to pay out in the long term with these qualifying efforts. We've got drivers like Daniel Falkingham, who is out there in his qualifying session at the moment on his 3rd lap. He'll certainly be someone to focus on as car number 60 looks to continue on with his work. This will be his 4th lap out there. He's done a 28.2, 28 flat, 28.1. This looks like it's going to be a really good for about 3rd place if he pulls it together. 28.083. It's good enough for 3rd fastest in the 2nd row.
Yeah, and you could see a couple of laps ago just that wide slide, which I was reacting to at the exit of turn number 2 for Kunze, but very good car control, keeping it off the wall, which is not easy to do at all with these cars, and you can just see how the cars are changing over the course of the qualifying run. It's a 4-lap qualifying, and it's not that long of a distance. I mean, counting the exit lap, the out lap, you got 5 miles to do, but despite that, the car is changing just a little bit as the tires are heating up. So you gotta make compromises with your setup. And remember, these guys only had 1 hour to practice, so they don't have that pre-made super setup that they've been practicing for weeks. So they're learning on the fly here, and it's really teaching us about the adaptability of these drivers, as well as we can see one who can adapt to absolutely everything on the service, Garrett Maines.
Look at how much there is in terms of camber on that front left tyre there on the right side of screen. It's really showing how much he's trying to work with that car to get as much turn and as much contact patch there with the track as he can. They like running these cars on a knife edge, and so he's going to get a natural little bit of turnover to the left-hand side, very similar to what you see in oval racing, and he's really trying to maximize as much as he can through each and every single corner. His 2nd lap comes through. That's a 28.1. So he's currently trending a 28.2, a 28.1. He's going to need some 27.9s here if he wants to now challenge Nate Stewart and Benjamin Nelson, who are up there at the top in qualifying here with just under 7 minutes remaining for anyone who wants to put a respective lap time down. Right down there to the bottom, you can see with our camera right next to the steering wheel with the way it's mounted, past the Geico signage on the right-hand side and over the line. It's a 28.006. And right now he will need a 0.8 if he wants to go and put this one up near the pole. This is looking really solid from Garrett Maines, exactly what you'd expect from him to start off, one of the great all-rounders.
Yeah, he's looking very solid, very consistent. I'm surprised at the amount of camber given the lack of banking on this track, but obviously it's working out for him splendidly.
It is, and over the line, Garrett Maines at 27.999. It's good enough for 3rd fastest. He bumps down Matteo Kunze there in the 60 car for position, so that puts him in a little bit of trouble. Charles Wimbley out there on a lap then in the number 3 machine, hoping to try and climb up. 28.1 on his third lap. I think he's trending here for somewhere inside that top 10. If he can just pull it together, 28.057. He's just a thousandth short on average behind Daniel Folkingham. So he'll go to the third row of the grid, and that will be good enough for him. A number of drivers are out there and have used all of their laps and are just now circulating to get some track time experience. And you're looking down the list of those who haven't yet put a qualifying time down or didn't put a time down. The work that will have to be done by the likes of Louis Bailica, for example. Andy Trupiano, no time. Dalton Zavadil, no time. Chase Carter, no time. And, of course, right at the beginning, Trey Drawhorn couldn't quite get what he wanted. So I'm sure that Trash was not going to be very happy about it. But, you know, this is an important qualifying. You've got to try and keep yourself situated with everything that goes on. Most drivers would fall into the category of looking at a qualifying session like this and go, well, we only need one lap. No, you need 4 in this format.
Oh, you absolutely do. You absolutely do. And it's difficult to get it right, as we mentioned previously, as we've established so far. Now, here's Hugo Allen, the New Zealand-based driver who is a multiple-time national champion in many eSports series in New Zealand, was driving a Toyota GR86 in real life as well, winning the Rookie Championship there in 2022. So it's maybe a little bit of an alien format for Hugo, in that you're running a small open wheeler in an oval. So gonna be a lot of learning to do for him here, but he's one wild card I would look out for in this series. I mean, you got a couple of very experienced iRacers out there, and he is certainly no slouch, but he was 4th in the qualifying series, and that's an excellent result. So I'm really interested to see how he does.
29 flat, though, on the opening lap is not what the doctor is going to be ordering for his first lap time. So I don't think he's quite got the pace that he wants to go out there and succeed with at the moment. I would say that the Australia-New Zealand contingent are surprisingly good when it comes to oval experience, because they've got a really lovely, thriving dirt oval scene down under. And that might be something he has to lean into. Big wiggle out of 4 for Hugo Allen. 28.5 this time. It's getting better. He's around Dustin Yang at the moment, but he's still got room to improve.
Absolutely does, and his experience, as said, is mostly from tin tops, really. He's done Formula 4, but that's a bit of a different car, so what he's really got to get used to here, as you can see, entering the corner, how pointed the car is entering the corner, then the gradient changes as you go from first lane to second and third and rise up that track, and then how the back end operates with that little wiggle you saw earlier. It's a small car, it's a very pointy car, but when it snaps out on you, it doesn't happen slowly. That weight transfer is very quick, and it can go out on you in a heap, and you can just see how hard he's having to work that car, and comparing that to the likes of Garrett Maines, Ben Nelson earlier on, who were just basically gliding through the corners in that optimal oval line. You can see how he's having to fight the car, not quite having the instinct, the trust of it yet, but he's compensating with his driving ability so far.
Yeah, and over the line, 28.624 will be the average, and that will put him ahead of Anton Schopler and ahead of Dustin Yang. So Hugo Allen getting the Carpenter's line sorted there. He was soaring away a lot at the wheel. He'll be able to be happy with the result that he was able to get through. Now, I do want to point out Riley Stanzi here in the 118, because we've got no cars out there currently on representative lap times as Hugo Allen pulls it away. The 118 car, he's been running lap after lap after lap after lap out there on track, just trying to get a feel for these hot conditions out there, which are more indicative here in iRacing to an understeer out there. So they're going to be really seeing the car work around and using all of the 15 minutes here as Riley Stanzi. He is trying to get a little mock-up race session working for him in the 118. I think he'll be very happy about the fact that he's doing that, and no one else has had the same understanding that he's got of the car at the moment in these conditions.
Yeah, because the track changes when you go from practice to qualifying, generally speaking. So what you have is essentially that rubber gets cleaned out a little bit. It's a cleaner track. The air conditions, track conditions might change, so you get a better understanding of how the car is behaving in these conditions. But the problem for him maybe is that he's running solo right now. So yeah, he gets an understanding how it runs solo, but the pack racing is still a bit of a mystery. And usually if you set up your car so that it runs well in solo. It doesn't do anything weird underneath you. It's gonna understeer behind somebody. And Riley Stasny is not gonna start from near the front of the grid, so he's gonna be running behind somebody a lot. But it's still very helpful and very smart what he's doing right now, showing that intelligence.
Yeah, I really think that Riley Stasny has got a little bit of a something there, and he's trying to work with it. 30 seconds remaining in qualifying, and I would say that will be that for everybody looking to put their best foot forward as qualifyings go, which will mean that the grid will sort itself out for Heat 1, 30 minutes or 250 laps, whichever will come first. Out there is the challenge that they sit with. So that's going to be worth keeping in mind out there, as we'll have the opportunity to run ourselves through that starting grid here from New Hampshire Motor Speedway and the opening run of racing that they've got, with Benjamin Nelson finding himself then on the front and with a big smile to what he's managed there, with a 27.919, his best time in qualifying there. Nate Stewart finds himself alongside on the front row, with Garrett Maines and Matteo Kunze on row 2. It's then Daniel Falkingham who is there in what is 5th position overall on the grid. He's got Charles Wimbley for company in 6th, with Aaron Ramon in 7th, along with Spencer Schmidt. Your 5th row of the grid houses Bryce Rodriguez and Bryce Vire, which makes it an all-Bryce 5th row.
Yeah, let's see them racing for that grand prize. Matthew Dechaine is starting 11, with Alessandro Ranieri in 12th, Noah Ingram Harrison 13th, and Patrick Hingston in 14th place. You got Samuel Burnett in 15th, and Connor Henry in row number 8, 16th position. Hayden Manis in 17th. Riley Stasny, who we were on board with, in 18th. Hugo Allen on 19th place, and Anton Schoppler in 20th position.
21 drivers set a qualifying time. Justin Yang is that last driver in 21st. All of these other drivers will be ranked then by their Formula I rating out here on iRacing. That was going to be very interesting to note with the car that we've got here, which means Dalton Zavadil will be in 22nd, along with Lewis Bylicker in 23rd. It's then Andy Trupiano and Mark Anthony Hinkson in 25th position. In 26th is Trez Drawhorn, with Jacob Bradley 27th ahead of Christian Hines. And then you've got Mahid Rahman in 29th, and Jay Dennis rounding out your 30 of your 35 drivers. We'll just flick over the page and get those final 5 drivers there for you. Eric Norman on row 16 with Colton Schiaretta. And then you got Tannen Hibschman, Brandon William, and Chase Carter will have to go from the back of the field today and make as much time as possible. This is going to be a really important run. They've got these 30 minutes to go with in race 1, and they'll know that they'll have another 30 minutes to play with in race number 2. So to get this sorted out with this first race, those at the front will be happy, but you got to look around at everyone else here. This is a tough circuit. It's not like most other ovals where you can use the banking a lot to make these overtakes. This will be a battle for the bottom.
Absolutely will, Jake. 2 words: cold tires. That's going to be such a key here in the opening laps. You're running in a tight pack. The car's going to understeer beneath you. Then that suddenly turns into snap oversteer on the exit of the corner, as well as what we already saw in qualifying with cars getting loose as the gradient changes. They're going to be very aware of that. There's not a lot of room for error. So if you're playing the smart game, you're just going to make sure you're not alongside anyone. And if you are, give them plenty of berth in those opening laps. Then try to get that car underneath you, build your confidence gradually. It's a 30-minute race. It may not sound that long, but plenty of things can happen in the next half an hour.
They can. Half an hour is a very long time to work with, so we will be expecting a number of people to be sitting and saying, this is what we want to do. We want to get into this race for the long haul, not in this for 5 minutes of a bright showcase and then dramatically fall into trouble. I think that's what we're going to be seeing. You look at a driver like Nate Stewart, though. He is the sort of driver on the front with Benjamin Nelson there on the pole. Nate Stewart will be an interesting driver. He's just been picked up by Jim Beaver eSports for the eNASCAR season coming up. So someone like him who has gone through the entire eNASCAR, I would say, realm. He represented his college when it came to the college and eNASCAR series. He's gone right up now into the eNASCAR series proper, finding himself with Colin Keister this season as his teammate. I think this is someone who would definitely profiteer out of something like PT Autosport, out of this championship, and I think here's someone who really wants to start thriving and is showing that 2025 already might be his year.
Oh, it absolutely might. A lot of these drivers thinking the same, obviously, but he's one of, well, I wouldn't really place any favorites in this series, but very much one to look out for. I would put him on the same page with Hugo Allen in drivers that will be certainly keeping an eye out for. Not maybe the overall favorite, but certainly on the outside looking in very closely, looking to jump on any of these opportunities. So this is the kind of race that's going to call for that oval experience, but also those smart racecraft intelligence to pick out any situations and figure out what is the best strat going forward and what works in your favor. Just gonna point out quickly before we start, Jake, we got a comment from Amped Esports in our chat calling us awesome. Thank you, you're even better.
Well, we always do love seeing as many people out here watching some amazing sim racing with us here on the Global Sim Racing channel. 5 minutes up then on the hold for the grid as they now line up behind the iRacing sedan safety vehicle pace car. It says safety vehicle on the front because that's what it is. It's a safety vehicle and it's built with everything in mind that if you get into trouble, that's going to be the way you try and navigate yourself out of it. But that front row is going to be looking around and trying to set the pace. And this is going to be something worth keeping in mind on these starts, is that you've got to make sure you're keeping the heat in the tyres, but you don't want to go through as many cycle rotations of those tyres very much. You don't like to continually go from stop to start. And we've already got a car around at the back of the field, so we're not going to go green. They've extended the caution out by a lap for the car that spun right in the back, and that is a disastrous start to the race there as they went through. You don't want to have that. It might have been Brandon William who was caught up in that right off of the beginning, so dramatic to say the very least.
Yeah, not what you want, obviously. It can happen so easily, and we're watching
Sciaretta.
Yeah, there was a checkup. So just a bit of a clumsy checkup. You don't have much visibility in those low cars, what's happening ahead of you. They were catching up to the pack a little bit too quickly as everyone was trying to heat their tires and just locking up the brakes and heading into the wall. Let's hope they can continue. Yeah.
He's got a damaged front wing. I think his car's all right in the sense that he doesn't have the black and orange mechanical flag. One non-starter is Mahid Rahman, who is not taken to the start, but there's definitely damage to the right side of Colton Sciaretta's front wing, and that is going to really affect him off the start. Already difficult that he's at the back, but now he's got a little bit less downforce than he'd really like, or it's skewed in the way that he doesn't want it. That is going to be disastrous for what he wants. Now, this is also going to keep in mind that these drivers will now burn an extra lap of pacing fuel, which is not as much as, I would say, full fuel as the pace car dives in. That's something to keep in mind. Benjamin Nelson with control of the pace. Green flag in the air, and we are underway from New Hampshire.
Whoa.
Full wide and contact already to start things off. Yellow flag immediately, upside down. The big one starts like Daytona MX-5s.
Yeah, absolutely, and might have been a bit of bump draft involved in that one as well. Just like in Daytona, you got Jacob Bradley involved. Spencer Schmid, I think, was one of the drivers. Tress Drawhorn, and Chase Carter, Bruce Wire as well. A couple of cars involved in that one. We'll get the names as they come onto our live timing, updating on our computers, but that was a disaster start. Exactly what you're not supposed to do. They were 4 wide. One of the cars got pinched up against the top wall, and that's always going to be a disaster, especially with cold tires. So a little bit of anxiety maybe in the field getting the season started.
Well, I was looking at the green flag drop, and I think it was Samuel Burnett, or around Samuel Burnett, who it might have been Hayden Manis, who had got an almighty launch and had pushed it 4 wide and has done well. But it was the 4 wide further in front between Bryce Wire and Spencer Schmidt I think it would have been those drivers in and around who found themselves with the ability to attack, stuck out on the outside, and then the contact comes into play, and effectively it comes right back across the bottom side of the circuit. A massive slew of drivers in trouble. Christian Hines in trouble, Trez Drawhorn, Spencer Schmidt, Jacob Bradley, Eric Norman, all of them getting caught out early. But the good news is for those drivers is that they are in those conditions. We'll take a look from Connor Henry's perspective here in the number 9 car making his run through. You can see that's what he has in front, and then up and over. That is as scary as it gets. He just about avoids everything.
Very good job by Connor Henry. You could see just how he was picking out each and every bit. It's very dangerous to go around the outside in an oval usually when you're trying to avoid a wreck. But this time he picked out his line very well. Didn't brake too much, and that's the key when you're in the middle of the pack. You don't want to slam on the brakes, especially with these cars that have no brake lights, because you're just going to get rammed from behind. Those guys are getting gradually less and less time to react to the situation. So keeping up a good speed, avoiding all spinning cars, not getting too confused by the one car flying through the air. Let's see, Hingston's on board here, just running over that front wing, and wow. You got a car airborne in front of you. There's absolutely nada that you can do there. That was Alessandro Ranieri going airborne, by the way. Just nothing you can do.
Henry Drury laying down the law in terms of what happens on a race start, just making sure that everybody finds themselves in line and finds themselves with what they want. Those, of course, now who are a lap down and at the front of the field have the ability to now unlap and push forward. So the likes of Tannen Hibschman and Chase Carter can rejoin back onto the leading lap at the back of this field. Your big gainers, though, as we are going to extend the caution by an extra lap here, your big gainers out there, Hayden Mann gained 7 spots off the start. So too did Hugo Allen. Dustin Yang gains 8, and so too does Louis Bailicker.
Yeah, so a lot of cars pitting on lap number 1. By the way, I want to mention somebody who was lucky that something happened in lap 1. Colton Schiaretta. We saw him heading to the wall on that pacing lap, getting damage. Well, he went to the pit lane. He repaired that front wing right up. He's back in the game in 30th position.
Yep, so he'll be very happy about the fact that he's able to get that recovery. There are no limits to fast repairs in this series, so he'll be happy about that. So Bryce Wyatt moves over to the right-hand side, tries to get clear. It's right over the finish line. He gets stuck on that outside. Car comes back across into him, which he can't deal with. He gets a secondary massive swipe over the top, and that just tells you how, I would say, ultimate the damage was there. But that will put them back 2 laps. They'll effectively jump in a new car and go again. Don't worry about the laps here. They're not going to hit 250. It's all about the time on the clock, and they've already burned through no racing nearly 5 minutes worth of time. So I think that's going to be a big talking point here in terms of how you get this race to work for you. Do not get caught out and make moves quick, because cautions take at least a fifth of the race out of play. Nelson with control of the field once again will go once again from the bottom side. Green flag back in the air, and we're racing at New Hampshire.
Cleaner start this time around. Nobody going for that brave move around the outside, trying to make it 4 wide. Everybody lifting off instead of trying to go for that extra pass. Now 3 wide for the second place. Main, Stewart and Falkingham. And you can see Stewart on the inside trying to make those positions already, running that line. Careful not to understeer too wide there. You can see how he's having to lift off on the exit. That's how the car works. So losing out just a touch, getting back in fourth, but everybody filing pretty close to single file now. Much smarter here, Jake, than we saw in the first restart.
Yeah, we got 1 car around, though, and I think out of trouble up on the high side of the circuit, so that's going to be okay. We're going to continue on racing, but Nelson happy with what he wants. It's about single file through the front 4, and then you got Aaron Ramon out there in 5th position. He's got Matteo Kunza, who's going backwards, stuck there on the bottom, with Charles Wimbley now looking to make that move down low, getting that sorted at 1 and 2. You're really starting to see here that there is that aerodynamic effect they're having to deal with. These are open-wheel cars. You can't lean on other cars. You can't bump other cars around here. You've got to leave the space, and in the back, 1-2 going around. Bailicker was there. Caution flag has just come out.
Yeah, and Trez Drawhorn, I think one of the drivers caught a little bit in that one. Bailicker as well. You mentioned Louis Bailicker, they're caught up in that incident, the Apex Racing team driver. out of Karlsruhe, Germany, spinning out and out of control and losing a lot of time. So once again, once you get those tires underneath you, Jake, you need to you get more confidence, you get more racy in a sense, and that's when the second danger zone comes at you. So in oval racing, 3 phases of danger zone. First, cold tires. Second, that initial burst of confidence. Third, when the tires start wearing out eventually.
So it was Jacob Bradley and co that brought the caution out. Bradley and Hines coming together, making contact. Absolutely nowhere to go for Andy Trupiano, who just goes straight into the car in front of him, and nothing more that he could do about that. We'll see this here on the GSRC replay. This is Schiaretta going around and having his own issue as he finds himself down in the infield there through 1 and 2. But the big issue came through with the likes of Trupiano, Hines, and then, of course, Bradley, where the contact came along. Front of the field won't mind so much. Daniel Folkingham making the places, going up to the second row. But Benjamin Nelson has been playing rough shot at the front, knowing he's only got to master the short term, it seems, over the course of the first 10 minutes of this race. And he will feel quite comfortable with the way that he's put this race together so far.
Yeah, a couple of other drivers mentioning who will be comfortable with this. Let's get the replay for Christian Hines there. Then in the 97 car, just running into the back corner of the 50. So Hines getting that aero wash a little bit on the inside that we mentioned earlier on, just couldn't quite get it turned in. The problem is with those cars, they don't really react on a dime in such high-speed corners. So once
Here we go.
Yeah, you're a passenger at that point.
And there's the launch on the green flag. Benjamin Nelson has been really good at getting that launch sorted in comparison to Garrett Mains. Mains trying to cover on that inside from Folkingham, who goes really low, under the apron low, trying to get that drive, but he'll have nothing off the exit because he can't use the banking out there on that outside. It now brings Nate Stewart then using the toe to get that run, and he'll move up into 3rd position. Wonderfully constructed by Stewart. Aaron Ramon there in 7th as they fan out and create those 2 grooves.
They absolutely do. Still single file near the front, and you can just see those guys. Mains looking for that lead. However, look at that line, just so close to the inside. That's working for Garrett Mains, working wonderfully, but he's gonna be so compromised on the exit. We're on board with Stewart as Nelson and Mains are fighting for the lead, and you can just see almost dirt track lines out of Mains going so far to the inside.
Yeah, they're really having to work hard here as we're on board with Nate Stewart, and the look at the front of this field. Mains seeing now it's Nelson down to the inside, and I'm stuck on the outside. Mains down low, gets that place back and the fastest lap to boot as well. But look at this, you're getting these massive differences in lines, how low Garrett Mains goes. Benjamin Nelson very happy just to duck back through, use the power along the back stretch in towards 3 and 4, and staying low this time, trying to put a little bit of dirty air in play. Mains on the outside, they are dancing here at the front.
They absolutely are, and it's a great waltz to watch. Keep it on, keep playing, Big Band, because we've got a stage out there. A stage so fine, you can see now Nelson losing a little bit of time on the exit. That's going to bring Stewart and Folkingham back into play. I was going to say, the way the leaders were just going as we watch a replay quickly of Schoppler getting spun around. No caution, however, of that one, getting back into the wall. But the way these guys are battling in the lead, that's going to bring the whole pack together. They're not going single file, not really like, using each other to go faster and faster. They're fighting, and that means the pack is going to get closer.
Contact for the race lead, and that shows you all you need to know. Nate Stewart leans on Mains, and they go 3 wide as Nelson now looking down to the inside, the uber low line. He's not going to get the drive. Mains still on the outside. Stewart leading this field, and this is getting absolutely intense, and we're only a third of the way through this race. Now, you can't take the low line here because you've got a car exiting pit lane. That's Anton Schoppler after his contact, so that pretty much pinches the Nate Stewart line that he wants. Garrett Mains has his position, and now Daniel Folkingham finds himself in place in 3rd. This is overtake or be overtaken at the best way possible. 6 through at the front, and they are leaving no margin.
Did you see Stewart wiggle on the exit of that corner just now? Exit of turn number 4, wiggling in the middle of the corner. That's gonna chip away on his confidence because the car feels already loose underneath him. It's fine when he's running behind somebody, but I think he just wants to keep going there. Nope, he's going to the inside. Sure, let's go for the race lead. If I'm wiggling behind somebody, I want to be in the race lead. I want to be in clear air. However, if you ask Garrett Maines, nope, sir, gonna get the over-under on the exit.
Nit 1, Pearl 1, take a place away. Garrett Maines does not want to relinquish that race lead, and he'll again dive low as Nate Stewart puts the fastest lap, which is then taken away by Hugo Allen. And that big low line is what Garrett Maines has loved as late as you like from Nate Stewart as he moves over, and we'll get a bit of Noah's Ark sim racing because they are too wide and they are too deep into 3 and 4 with Nelson down low on Falkingham, but Falkingham taking that wider line. Troubles for Hayden Manis potentially down there as we've got other battles going out there for right now for what is 14th position and on back. Every point counts.
Yep, and just a quick shout out to car number 18, Chase Carter, currently in 12th place. Oh, no! Everybody's out in front. 2 guys making it through. Nelson and Falkingham. Rodriguez making it clean through as well. But that's big damage for the likes of Stewart and Garrett Maines as well.
Well, Nate Stewart was down low, and Garrett Maines was only going to give him so much because he was running up the circuit, and that's what happens when you attack off the exit. 2 into 1 never truly goes. The front 4 drivers at that point all got caught up in the instant at the front. No surprises that a caution gets thrown for that, but it does now mean that Daniel Falkingham is your leader, Benjamin Nelson is second, and Bryce Rodriguez now moves up into third. It's a case of right place, right time. Maines has every right to hold his line there the way that he did, and I think Nate Stewart just came up the circuit there and caught Garrett Maines in the side, and that is pretty much all you write from that position. You've just got to leave a little bit more room in open wheel.
Yeah, you just have to, and we saw the washout earlier and how careful drivers have to be. Just try to squeeze a little bit more on the throttle as we see some drivers opting for the pit lane, for that early stop right now, potentially going for a little bit of a top-up, maybe some fresh rubber, and that might come in clutch later on. But Falkingham, and you see how few drivers are opting for the pit lane, however. I'm seeing 5 cars at the moment. Falkingham certainly among them, and that's gonna play out interestingly because they're gonna be right at the pack. I think they were anticipating everybody pitting right now, but that's just not the case, and it's Nelson then inheriting the lead as a result of that as we jump on board of Maines, and yeah, Maines holding his line perfect, just a little bit of overlap with the right front on the left rear, and just a hard contact with the vault and a secondary contact as the cars come back together. Maines spinning around and getting it collected pretty quickly, but that's going to be a repair job in the pit lane and a lot of positions lost.
Well, he'll lose the positions, but he'll gain them back through the fast repair, so he'll only fall down to the back of the pack, which is the important thing. He'll remain on the lead lap because he managed to bring that car around under the caution period, so that certainly saves a few things. So now it is going to be a little bit different out there as the order goes. Benjamin Nelson is your leader, Bryce Rodriguez second, Daniel Falkingham did just dive into the pit, so that now promotes Charles Wimbley in the 3 car to P3, and you're looking around at drivers who have taken advantage. Now, you talk about Chase Carter. He's now up from 35th, absolute last in the field now, to 8th place overall, likes of Dustin Yang, Hugo Allen, Matthew Deschênes. Those drivers have all kept it out of trouble, and as such, from being outside the top 10, they find themselves 5th through 8th.
Yeah. Just, I was gonna mention him earlier, before that crash happened, but Chase Carter out of Burleson, Texas. What a race the 18-year-old is having so far. And just, you know, his BO, that's just echoing what so many are saying briefly before we get going. I love racing, and I've always wanted to be a race car driver. Well, here's your chance, go take it.
Well, this is where you got to sense that just over the halfway stage of the first race in the PT Autosport eSeries, you've got to be so switched on and alert. We've seen dramatic efforts out there as the green flag comes out again. Benjamin Nelson has led every restart through one way or another. 3 wide already. They're going to go for second position, and Bryce Rodriguez having to really fend off with the likes of Aaron Ramon, with the likes there, of course, of Hugo Allen, who are back there. But key is to this. Charles Wimbley down low, a little think from Deschênes, who's hoping that he's going to get himself through, struggling for grip through the middle then is going to be Wimbley, and look at that, they've almost given a second here to Benjamin Nelson to run away with.
Yeah, Nelson just getting away, clinging as the rest of them are busy scuffling. They're going to have to realize it soon. Little bit of a touch there between Wimbley and Deschênes, and that's going to lead to Deschênes touching the wall and a big crash to the inside. A lot of cars spinning around. Hayden Main is involved. Hugo Allen as well, the New Zealand driver who was involved in that one. Matteo Künzer losing a position. So a few drivers then crashing out once again, and we are under yellow flag conditions.
It's Chase Carter who got into the back of Hugo Allen, and that's the fourth caution of the race. So it basically threw a chain reaction around from everyone. Carter's contact put Allen across the circuit, and then everyone had to scramble to try and avoid, and secondary and tertiary contact came into play. Not much that could be done about it, but it will be a shame for Benjamin Nelson. He absolutely aced that on the restart, but all of that margin that he built, that will go away again as he lines up behind the iRacing sedan safety car, and will realise that he's got a lot more to do behind the pace car and make sure that this race is not going to be over until he has a chance to. So this has been a really difficult race for those nearer the front, I would say. So we'll take another look. This is Dalton Zavadil's perspective here. You'll see the smoke in front, and he just runs the back over car number 8, which would have been Hayden Manis. And effectively, he wouldn't have been easily seeing what was going on in front. He'd have seen a little bit of smoke there on the outside of 2, but really when he went down low, he wouldn't have been expecting the crash to have also come down low. That would have been unsighted.
Yeah, and as said, it can happen so quickly. Tapping the brakes, and Manis was not doing really anything wrong, just tapping the brakes, avoiding the contact by the car behind, no time to react, and this car slam on the brakes so quick, they lose speed so quickly that you just run into the back. And he was fortunate that it was really a straight-on contact, nose cone to the gearbox. So no big damage to the tires, to the suspension alignment and such. As you can see what happens to Hugo Allen, the New Zealand-based driver, just spinning around, getting it back under control, and fair play to him. That's not an easy catch to make. By the way, Jake, a bit of a talking point. We watched earlier Garrett Mains and Nate Stewart getting caught up in that crash. Garrett Mains now back in 10th, Nate Stewart in 12th.
Well, they've both made places and they've made gains through the issues of others, and they'll be knowing that they've got slightly fresher tyres out there than those who haven't pitted up at the front. So they'll be trying to navigate their way through with 11 minutes and 20 seconds to go in a massive field like this with just 21 drivers out there on the leading lap. I wouldn't expect drivers to come in and pit and sacrifice that lap time and that track position, all importantly, from this point onwards. I think you're very much running with the tyres that you've got and the ability to try and last in this one. And it's been such a stop-start race with the lights off on top of the iRacing pace car there, the sedan. It's been so stop-start that these drivers have not been able to settle down, I would feel, into a rhythm. And that's what good racing brings, is rhythm. Once drivers settle into a rhythm, they really do fly. In a race like this, it's about being proactive, not necessarily reactive. And that's where some of the troubles have lied. Pace car dives in, and once again, Benjamin Nelson leads the field. Huge block by Bryce on Charles Wimbley, wanted none of him following through down on the inside, but it won't matter. He'll come through anyway in second position. Wonderful bit of driving by Charles Wimbley. He was switched on to the restart.
Absolutely was. That was a big block and a big crash behind, but I don't think that's going to bring out the caution just yet. Everybody making it pretty cleanly through. Wimbley and Rodriguez then very feisty right from the get-go. Rodriguez going to get that position back round the outside, carrying that momentum very well. Someone I'm going to look out for, Falkingham and the likes of that, with the new tires, potentially going to pounce through the field, but they need a long stint here, and they'll be hoping, they'll be praying that this is going to be a longer stint, as we see a replay of what happened to Jacob Bradley, just getting a bit of a wheelie done, losing his front wing sadly. No downforce for him, and no yellow as a saving grace.
Garrett Maines now up to 7th position. He's making hay while the sun shines here in New Hampshire. Wimbley still there in 3rd, but falls back into line with Bryce Rodriguez. They've got 0.4 of a second. That's there, as there is Maines, who can't take the line that he normally would want to because of the car of Jacob Bradley, which is making its way back out onto circuit. On board with Maines in 7th, who will be looking in front of him at Aaron Ramon. There as another caution comes out, this one in the backfield.
Yeah, and one more caution we get, and drivers 10 dropping back that speed, dropping back that pace, dropping back that tempo, and the stop-start continues with less than 9 minutes left.
Yep, so big dramas out there. I think it would have been Bilica who has been caught up in that, and maybe Samuel Burnett as well. Looks like the two who have been in the wrong place at the wrong time, and that one happening on the exit of turn 2. Burnett on the outside here, and he just gets squeezed with no room to go, and he finds the catch fence up there, and it's not often that you see these Indy Pro 2000s catching that much air to catch fence.
Yeah, no kidding, they don't usually carry that much speed, but then when you get out those wheel-to-wheel contacts in an open-wheeler car, there is not much you can do. The car just bounces so much, and just clearing that wall, hitting the catch and spinning around. Horrific situation. So 8 minutes to go. Who's your money on, Jake?
Benjamin Nelson. Quite simply put, has not relinquished the front of this field very much. He's been lightning on the restarts. Garrett Maines is in no position to attack, and Bryce Rodriguez hasn't shown the pace that he can claw back to Benjamin Nelson over the short-term pace. So when you're sitting down on it here, Ozzy, surely Benjamin Nelson is in A1 position.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Somebody I'm gonna mention here, we've been mentioning those positions gained. In position number 5, in car 25, is Dustin Young out of St. Paul, Minnesota, up 16 positions. And another reason I'm mentioning him, he was the last driver to qualify for this series, qualified 40th out of 40, the 20-year-old American. And he's really putting on an underdog performance of a lifetime here. And I hope I didn't just commentators curse him, but that 5th place would be certainly more than one can hope and dream in the opening round, if that stays as it is.
I don't believe in curses. You make your own luck in this series, and Dustin Yang, I would say, has not been Minnesota nice over the course of this race. I think he's been making those places, keeping out of trouble, and he's wanted to make moves, and we've seen that from him throwing it down the inside on a couple occasions. With 6 minutes to go, they've probably got space for one more caution and racing to go out, so I wouldn't say it's a done deal just yet on time. But for Benjamin Nelson, he'll be counting those laps down and hoping for another yellow to come out then from his position on the front, electing to take the inside line as his right, and now he will be certainly hoping that he can get the launch again on Bryce Rodriguez, on Charles Wimbley, on Matthew Deschênes, who is there in 4th position. The drivers who have not been caught out in the wrong place. In comes the pace car, and with 6 minutes on the clock, the green flag is out, and they are underway again. Rodriguez again, slightly sluggish, but a little better this time. He doesn't have to worry as much about Charles Wimbley, but Wimbley still looks to go down to the inside, still looking to take what he believes is his, but can't quite get the run that he wants. 3 wide as Garrett Maines tries to think about where he wants to go. He's blocked in behind Yang and also behind Aaron Ramon, who's stuck on that outside line, but Nelson not clear this time. 0.3 of a second, that's clawbackable.
It is, especially if Bryce Rodriguez gets a clean bird. Those guys fighting behind him, Wimbley and Deschênes as well. So that's gonna allow some room for Rodriguez to catch up to Nelson potentially. But look at Nelson, his raw pace is just unbelievable right now. Despite the draft giving some help to Rodriguez, Nelson is just so on the groove right now. The car working wonders underneath him, and meanwhile behind Charles Wimbley looking to the outside of Bryce Rodriguez, and that's gonna slow Rodriguez down, having him compromise his line, and that's gonna be mana from heaven for Bryce Nelson.
And look at Garrett Maines on the outside. He moves up to 4th. He's past Shane, and he'll be looking at these two next, saying, well, I want more. I want to get to Benjamin Nelson, who leads this field outright, and they still slide through. Little bit there of wings there out there on the circuit there for a couple drivers who've dived into the pits. But on with Garrett Maines they go, and that gap of 0.4 of a second that he'll have to go. He ducks uber low, and that actually keeps him out of the air. The dirty air and turbulences that the downforce, the aerodynamics, continues to put in. That's where he's building that advantage and carving through as he dives through on Bryce Rodriguez, now to 3rd.
Yeah, and the track surface as well, it's a lighter surface, so that's gonna mean less track temp. Nobody's running there, there's no rubber down there. So it's a very, very good line as we have a massive mayhem on the back.
Trez Drawhorn's caught up in it. You got Nate Stewart who's caught up in it. It's a massive incident that has come along. It was from drivers going down on the apron. It was Aaron Ramon who washed up the circuit. Low stayed Daniel Falkingham, who was trying to get that drive front to rear, and ultimately there was no way of avoiding that. Everybody's involved.
Yeah, including Dustin Young, we just mentioned, and I can't help but feel responsible for that, but really that's just Minnesota sports for you.
Sometimes it happens where you get yourself into a great position, you're in the playoffs, and ultimately you go out in round 1. That was the case there. There's the contact. And where do you go as a driver when that happens? It's nigh on impossible to predict where you're supposed to go. The entire track was pretty much jammed up.
Yeah, some of those drivers behind could have potentially slowed down a little more. I don't like drivers running into an accident like 3-4 seconds later, but then again, those cars also get so loose when you slow down the pace that I can sort of understand if the car is on the edge anyway, that you don't want to just slam on the brakes because you're going to spin to the outside wall. But yeah, nothing a lot of those drivers could do. They're just running into the scene of an accident, seeing the track block, and a lot of bad options. None of them are good. Just running into the crash and seeing their hopes and dreams gone up in smoke.
It happens 2.5 minutes. Will there be enough time to get back to green flag running? Because we are running to time, and this is going to be a case of you don't get overtime in this series. You've just got to play to the clock, and Benjamin Nelson, who has been at the front of the field, has been in the safest place, which has been P1. He started it with a great qualifying session, and he's worked through. Wembley there in 2nd, Bryce Rodriguez 3rd, Garrett Maines in 4th position, Matthew Shane is 5th, and then it's Andy Trupiano who has made his progress. He's up to 7th. Hugo Allen will be happy, right? Oh, sorry, up to 6th. You got Hugo Allen 7th. You got Mark Anthony Hinkson there in 8th place. So he's certainly profiteered off of other dramas with all of what has gone on. We're down now with 1.5 minutes to go to 14 cars on the leading lap, and this is Nate Stewart's perspective. And double rotation as he flies through the sky. That's not what he wanted.
No, and you'll be glad it's a simulator at that, when you see accidents like that, just running full speed to the outside wall, spinning through the air as well. I was just about to mention, how is Hugo Allen back? We thought he was a gunner from this race in terms of any chance at top finishing positions. He's back in 7th place right now, just behind Trupiano, and Marc-Anthony Hinkson as well, out of Barbados, representing the islands in 8th position, and that's gonna be something he's hoping to keep to the end of this race. We might get one more lap, but it's looking pretty dicey right now.
No, the lights are still on here on top of the pace car, which means it's got to go at least another lap around. So I think that's going to call it here for race 1 of your PT Autosport eSeries. You got one more race after this here tonight, but you're certainly getting an understanding of what is going on. Benjamin Nelson here will now just have the 1.7 kilometers left to drive in his race to claim the first win of the season. He will be very happy about the way that he's gone about his business here today, and you can't really argue against him, Ozzy. He's been at the front, he's been at the safest place, and when trouble came at the front, he was in the right place to avoid it.
Exactly. So, and I think, apologies, I think in a lot of these cases, the safest place is right at the front of the field, despite those wild battles early on. But the safest place is really when you're not running alongside anybody, you got nobody in front of you, you can make your own destiny. And then he was able to muster the pace to keep running away from the guys behind, keep the gap at 3 to 4 tenths, not allowing anyone a chance to attack him either. So great job by Nelson.
Rounding 3 and 4 behind the iRacing sedan pace car. It is a tale as old as time when it comes to oval style racing. Keep it out of trouble and find the result which gives you what you need. When it comes to Benjamin Nelson and the result that he was playing for, he will have a smile from ear to ear. He will pick up the win, and it's worth noting over the line, Bryce Rodriguez caught Charles Wimbley napping, and he's stolen second away by 100th.
Yeah, it was very interesting to see that pace car actually leave the front of the pack and not freezing the results. I think Wimbley was thinking that the race is over, but they still had that a little bit of a dash to the line. And would have been very, very, very interesting to see somebody pass Nelson for the lead, but that obviously didn't happen. So Wimbley losing the second place just at the start-finish line. But regardless, we saw a very typical open-wheeler race on a small oval like this, and I hope a lot of these drivers get a learning experience out of this and are better prepared for the next race, which is coming up.
They certainly will, and the finishing positions here are also going to be their starting positions for the feature here at New Hampshire for round 2. So Benjamin Nelson finds himself then with the victory, and he wins by 3 tenths over Bryce Rodriguez, with Charles Wimbley being relegated down to 3rd. Garrett Maines would find himself in 4th positions ahead of Matthew Deschênes in 5th. Andy Trupiano would move into 6th place with Hugo Allen in 7th. Mark Anthony Hinkson will be 8th with Hayden Manis in 9th, and Dalton Zavadil's number 42 car would find its way to 10th.
Then you see Tanon Hipsman in 11th place ahead of Daniel Falkingham and Matteo Günther. Connor Henry in 14th and Chase Carter in 15th place ahead of Louis Bailike, Christian Heinz and Patrick Hingston. You got Bruce Wire in 19th place and Alessandro Ranieri rounding out the top 20.
Over the page then to the 3rd page of results. These drivers 2 laps down. Samuel Burnett, Trez Drawhorn, Colton Schiaretta had troubles right before the start of the race. Aaron Ramon getting caught up in the big one with Dustin Yang, 25th. Noah Ingram Harrison would be 2 laps down. Eric Norman would be the first of the drivers 3 laps down, including Jacob Bradley and Anton Schopler, with Nate Stewart also classified as 3 laps down. Just the 33 starters to that opening race, which included Spencer Schmidt, Riley Stasny, and as well Brandon William, who found himself out of the race and decided to not attack the opening race further than 17 laps, but is back for the second race, which will be coming up shortly. We are on a 5-minute grid hold at the moment before we head ourselves over to that racing. So we're about 2 minutes and 40 seconds away here, Aussie, from race 1 to race 2. And I think what told was being at the front of the field. I think that was the story that pretty much got everybody going. If you can stay at the front, you are most likely to stay out of trouble. There was some great racing there between 10 and 15 minutes, but the moment that the big one happened at the front, it was a case of everyone's trying to make places. And these drivers here, they all qualified for this series, but they won't have necessarily raced each other, so they don't have an understanding of what each other's driver's style is, which is probably the most underrated factor of what happens when you go race in a series like this. You look at drivers, say, for example, in the NASCAR Championship, they know each other week in, week out. These drivers might not necessarily do.
No, and you got very different approaches as well. You're talking about guys from Road Series, for example, where the bulk of my experience is from, and the way we approach ovals and the way we approach cornering rights, for instance. You don't usually anticipate the guy on the inside sliding up quite, or having to hold the line quite so much. The line is much clearer, the corners are shorter, so running alongside somebody in a long corner like this can really catch you out. Contrarily, the oval guys are maybe expecting different approaches to the corners, so they have to live and learn as the race develops. And that is what really makes this format quite interesting, is that they have very little learning time, and they're obviously using the practice to perfect their setup and get a feel for the track, get a feel for the car, and not necessarily get a feel for track racing. One thing I will mention, a lot of drivers would be well served to take a page out of Garrett Main's book, in that running the inside line, the ultra inside line on the apron that we were talking about. Because not only does it help you as the race develops, because you got a lot of grip down there, or more grip out there than you would expect, but also because that's gonna keep you out of trouble. The way you see cars crashing when they crash in the middle of the corner or the exit of the corner, they're usually gonna run to the outside at first. They might then bounce to the inside, bounce from the wall, the pack develops, the track gets blocked, but on the very inside line, you're less likely to be caught out in somebody else's mistake. Somebody running up the track, running into the rear tire of you, the left side rear tire, that's not gonna affect you because you're all the way up to the inside, and you're just putting yourself at less of a risk. Contrarily, it's also more difficult to control the car down there. So it's really pick and choose, but that's a very safe option out here on race number 2.
It's safe in terms of where drivers place it. If accidents happen, it's naturally going to go up the circuit rather than down. But it's also going to be a case of you are dealing with a car that wants to pull to the left with no banking when you're down there on the apron, compared to the couple of degrees that you'll have there through some of the corners. So you really do have to play with what works for you, and it's not necessarily working for everyone. And some drivers might try to experiment, knowing that they are in this final race of tonight. They know they cannot improve from race 2 out there after race 2 finishes. They know that they will have to wait for the next rounds in February, which will be coming up with us, of course, on the Global Sim Racing channel. But at least for the time being, we will say that 5 minutes is very much soon going to be coming up. I think that the grid countdown was set a little late, so they've had a little bit more time just to sit down and get prepared for this as they look to try and get themselves into position. And finally, yes, the iRacing sedan pace car will pull away, and we will have that one lap before they run on forward. Benjamin Nelson ran roughshod at the front of the field through a caution-filled run, 6 cautions in race 1. Will Benjamin Nelson look to do the same here in race 2, Ozzy?
I don't see why not. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be looking to do the same and looking to run away from the field. Might not be as easy this time around, but he certainly got the confidence and got the feel for the car and is in very much a position that he likes. Now, the biggest danger for him is what will Rodriguez, Wimbley, and especially Mains do early on in this race. If they can challenge him, pull him into those battles, then it's going to be a lot more difficult.
It certainly will do, and they'll be certainly hoping to follow in the footsteps of Aaron Smith, who booked himself the place, of course, to the Aspiring Driver Shootout. That's the prize they're all aiming for. 40 drivers, 1 opportunity, 1 ticket to the best place in town. Benjamin Nelson, control of the field. Race 2 of your PT Autosports eSeries starts now, and immediately drivers looking to move. 2, 3 wide, Mains to the outside, 3 wide for second as they now start rushing on by and hoping to get what they want. Wimbley on the low side gets what he wants. Mains with the power move around the outside, up to second.
Very brave going around the outside in turn number 1. Of course, with cold tires, that might feel a little bit safer, but still you got 2 guys on the inside of you. You don't know if they're gonna wash out or not, so he just pulled that power move, took the chance early on, and it paid dividends for him. Now he can chase down Ben Nelson. He can potentially pass Ben Nelson for the lead.
Benjamin Nelson, well, not much he could do there. It'll be a case of, can I get the drive off the exit and attack him into 3 and 4? Answers yes. Nelson goes low side, and now he'll pick up the run that he wants, trying to offer the exit. These two now can work in lockstep if they want to and try and break away from the rest of the field. It's a little bit of fanning out then through back with the likes of Hinkson. Daniel Falkingham has made a few good places then off of the start. He's already +3. Trupiano with the fastest lap of the race, and they are starting to chop and change at the moment. Mains with your race lead. Nelson in second. Bryce Rodriguez watching on from third.
Yeah, Bryce is in that popcorn position we talk about so much. He can just pick his line and follow what these guys are doing. And if the battling gets closer and closer, then he can potentially like see, okay, I can get them both on the exit in a single move. If that's what you want to do, you can see the rear of the pack there. Just they're going 3-4 wide, really hustling and bustling and battling for those positions, but in the lead is where the proper battle truly lies at the moment. Nelson once again looking to go to the inside. You can see Rodriguez then thinking about following Nelson through and then deciding not to do that after all. He wants to run the racing line, at least for now.
Well, it's very interesting right now. We've got 8 clear with Daniel Falkingham as the 8th driver. It's then Hinkson and Manis who are starting to fall off the back of this group. So they are already starting to form a little pack here through 2 minutes, and they are looking to try and improve. And there is the rhythm. Massive issue on the backstretch. They're going to argue that it cleared before the need of throwing a caution out there. So troubles for Bryce, Wire, Schopler, Drawhorns in there, Hibschman caught out, so a massive amount of drivers then in trouble at the back, but it was at the back, so we'll say play on.
Yeah, play on, keep driving, guys, and that's going to be an absolute disaster for those guys involved in that one. Dustin Young in the pit lanes as well, involved in some sort of an incident, potentially the same one as everybody else. You can see that pack trying to run away there. You can see Rodriguez as well, looking to move to the inside, taking a bit of a tighter line. You saw earlier on how Rodriguez and Nelson were getting closer to each other on the exit, as you can see. Tress Drawhorn then spinning around at the exit of the corner, and that's gonna catch a lot of drivers out. A massive pileup, but no caution.
No caution there, but at the moment, keep an eye on Trupiano, who's moved himself up into 3rd place. Andy Trupiano has had I would say, a soldier's run. He qualified 24th in race 1, made his way up to 6th, and now he's up in the podium places, so to speak, in 3rd. But in oval racing, if you ain't first, you're last. And at the moment, Garrett Maines and Benjamin Nelson have been happy to play this game of chop and change at the front. It's been between them. At some point, this miniature truce, I'm going to call it, is going to have to be broken, and battle lines will need to be drawn.
Yeah, and it's going to be curious to see who is the driver who is first over the line each and every time. Because you can see now Nelson opting for that very inside line, but Garrett Maines is happy with what's going on. He's going to be beating Nelson to the line if it stays as is. He's getting better and better exits, and really Nelson has to find a way to reverse the situation. Tucking in for now, filing behind Garrett Maines, seeing what Garrett Maines is doing, really conserving his tire. And despite the two battling in the front, as Connor Henry has spun around, catching a couple of other drivers with him as well in that situation. You can see that on the replay. But yeah, just gonna be conserving the tires, and Trupiano is losing a bit of ground. Wimbley, Falkingham, Rodriguez losing even more ground. So that just goes to show you the pace that they're keeping up in the front despite the battling.
I think Falkingham here is very much mired down in the battles that he's got, because Bryce Rodriguez has proven that he wants to battle with everyone. Hugo Allen makes his way through, and now here comes Deschênes, who goes big down low to try and take the place away and go. Maine's still leading there, and Trupiano will be quite happy with 3rd place at the moment. These are important points that he's trying to take away from New Hampshire towards round 2. These drivers have only had an hour's practice. They didn't know what car, what track they'll be running, and the reason why this series is run like this is because they want to take the hot lappers away. You can win by just getting a lot of practice down and doing quite well. So the solution to it is, well, we'll take the hot laps away and say, right, it's the best driver who will come out and get what he wants.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about this before the broadcast as well. It's a bit of a double-edged sword, in my opinion. Yeah, it takes the hot lappers away, and in that sense, it's very fair. But also, those drivers with previous experience, that experience is now worth its weight in gold. Those who know the ins and outs of New Hampshire Motor Speedway, those who have experience, especially with open-wheel cars on oval. And it's no wonder you get the experienced iRacing guys out there in front, experienced oval guys, because nobody else had time to really compensate for that difference in experience. But regardless, it's the same for everybody in each and every round. So that might play the other way around when it comes to potential road courses later on in the series.
Yeah, it certainly could pay a huge difference. You've got 8 clear at the front. It's 2 seconds over to Matteo Kunze, who is in P9 and is desperately trying to find any way to get back to Matthew Deschênes in P8 and would probably be quite reliant on a caution anytime soon to have any hopes of picking more than just 9th place points in the back pocket. Bilica here in 11th, the second group continuing to have its battles out there, and he's got Hayden Manis behind him and Nate Stewart, but in front he's looking for a way past Mark Anthony Hinkson, and he's hoping at the moment that he can find his Cleopatra of an overtake.
Certainly will Bilica looking to make those moves. Another driver who is looking to make moves, number 15, you can see there in the background with the yellow front of the car, Nate Stewart, and up 18 positions in this race so far, having to start right from the back, but he is not the kind of driver who we expected to be on the back necessarily. A bit unlucky in race number 1, but looking to get those positions, and he really needs a caution right now. That's something that he would be hoping for. So far, not happening.
Go to the front because we're dealing with lap traffic in bulk for the first time. And this is going to be important because if you can't clear the traffic in a timely manner, you might see this front group break up, and it already is with Hugo Allen in 5th position, 6/10 back now. They've really got to work their way through and hold effectively like a tow rope the car in front. Mains your leader, Nelson second, Trupiano under pressure. Here comes Folkingham down low, this for 3rd.
Neat move down the inside for Folkingham. Let's see if he can keep it on the exit, get that tow, potentially keep Trupiano behind him. Yes, he does, and just a neat exchange of positions there, really, and Trupiano not feeling like attacking too much in the corner. They got to deal with the lap traffic, pigtail line, and also communication, that non-verbal communication of what the lap traffic is going to do. Are they going to go on the inside, go on the outside? The traditional oval way is that lap traffic goes to the outside, but that depends on the car and circuit, and of course, not a lot of these guys are experienced oval drivers, as you see a bit of a tap to the wall and a smoke puffing out, a cloud of smoke, but that's only a slight tap, no harm done, but still precarious situation out here.
I'll tell you what, Daniel Folkingham is really having to ride his luck here at the moment. He didn't know where Brandon William was going to go in front of him, and he very much had to find the binders and just ease off of it by a 10th or 2. He's gathered it back. Samuel Burnett is who he's got to clear next, and they've done just enough. Hugo Allen's managed to hold on to the back of it, so the entire group, I think, has done really well to stay relatively together through that experience and continue on, and they'll only look to find that pace as it goes. That's Folkingham then clearing Burnett, but Mains and Nelson happy at the front, and Garrett Mains and the front of the field are pretty much a match made in heaven. We see it so often with Garrett Mains and the way he drives. I'm sure he'll be very happy to be there at the moment, but Nelson, how much is he biding his time as a 3rd of the race is going to be put in the books and clean the longest green flag run all race long.
Let's hope it stays this way. This is very interesting to watch how this develops. Bit of a side-by-side action further than in the pack, clearing out further lapped cars. And really good job by those lapped cars as well. It's so easy to just lift off the throttle too much, trying to be too nice when you're a lapped car. That is not what you have to do. What you have to do is stick to your line, stick to your racing line, and make sure that you're predictable to the guys that are passing you, because if you're too slow, you're just going to be a moving chicane effectively and lead to more situations. Bruce Wyerton getting unlucky there in a 3-wide situation, just getting once again that rear tire tagged out, spinning into the wall, no caution to save him.
No, nothing there, so we continue on, and Wire won't be happy. Nate Stewart, by the way, 30th on the grid, P9. He's up 21, but 3 seconds to Wimbley to chase down next. I think he's hit a brick wall in terms of what he wants as Nelson starts searching around for different lines. And watch out, because that's going to be a little look then on more lap traffic. That's Dustin Yang who's going to be losing out in terms of his place, and that's going to be very good for Folkingham because he's now right on the back of Nelson and Mains. And remember, he was caught out at the front of the field in the battles earlier on in race 1, and it's taken him all this time to get back, and he's looking to try and make something happen as a little bit on the wider side goes Mains. You can't get that close, heading over towards 1 and 2 once again.
Whoa.
They're playing with it, power move. Oh, Daddy Boy looking for the inside for the race lead.
He's so far to the inside, any more than he'd been in Narnia. Not quite making the pass through, but certainly making his intentions clear. The battle flag, it has been raised. The trumpet has been sounded. Let's go, guys.
Yeah, it's on. 18 minutes, 45 seconds. Daniel Falkingham makes his intentions known here at the front of the field. They've built the gap now out to 1.3 here to Hugo Allen. So it's 4 clear at the front, and it looks like there's been some big dramas with Charles Wimbley and Bryce Rodriguez. So that's why they're dropping down the order and why the group has completely imploded.
Yeah, and these three right now, they're having a lot of space around them, and there's gonna be a tight squeeze. Just barely. Garrett Main's probably hard skipping about 1100 beats, but he's gonna make it through to the inside. So yeah, less and less space given each and every lap, and at some point, there's gonna be a situation where there's too little space given, and there's gonna be contact. That's the way it's headed right now. But Mains and Falkingham really battling it out with Trupiano and Allen looking to the outside. Here's what happened to Deshane. You can see the replay. Just a slight tug potentially at the exit of the corner. Gonna be touching each other once again. And Inesio's contact leading to a very difficult situation. And Matthew Deshane losing out the most out of that one.
3 wide off the exit. Garrett Mains then at the front. Falkingham second. Nelson continuing to try low in 3rd position. These drivers are all now starting to think about, well, where's the right place? And you've got to be very choice in a scenario like this. It's a long green flag run that they're in at the moment. So they'll be looking around going, well, I don't want to push the boat out too much. There's Trupiano from Club Michigan down to the inside, and he's just staying back there in 4th place, showing Mains, Falkingham and Nelson nothing in this race. He doesn't have to. He'll do so in the final 5.
Yep, and then another driver, Hugo Allen, in that 5th position, just dropping back a little bit from the leading 4, but that's the thing. That's the thing with Hugo. He can afford to drop back just a bit right now. Just give it time. See what happens towards the end of the race. You know that they're running so close to each other, running different lines, that their tires are going to wear out. That's potentially what Alan is thinking right now. Leave a little bit of gap, don't run in that dirty air, and have some tire later on in this race.
Well, to talk about this between race 1 and race 2, it's like seeing chalk and cheese. Same car, same track, completely different style of racing.
Oh, absolutely are. This is just really wrestling, freestyle wrestling at some points. What it comes to, you have to pick what you can get, grab anything you can, and be aggressive in your attack. Yeah, you have to keep the long game in mind, the long con in mind as well. But really, in situations like this, you just pick your line and try to stay through it. In a sense, this has more to do with dirt oval racing at some points than it has to do with a proper big stock car racing, especially in those big ovals, the way that you just have to run your preferred line and stick to it.
Nelson with the big move down low, going for the race lead off of Garrett Mains, and hoping at the halfway stage it's him who's going to be smiling there at the front. These drivers have got so much experience. This is Noah Ingram Harrison. Oh, that's the biggest hit we've seen yet. A tank slapper off of 4 right into not only the safer barrier, but the pit attenuator.
Yep, that's something, that's the most dreadful feeling and dreadful thing you can get in an open wheel car on an oval, with any car on an oval really. You get a little bit loose on the exit of the corner and you compensate, you steer into the skid, but you steer just a little bit too much. The car grabs grip once again, and as it grabs, you're heading to the right, to the direction you're steering in, and on the right is the outside wall and your day's done. It's just
look at this. This is an attempt to box in. Then once more from Benjamin Nelson. They all move up high, but he's tried to go uber low, leave it as late as possible to commit to his turn, and he'll take the race lead because of it. Wonderfully done. It also inconveniences Falkingham there in 3rd position. The 2 pieces of lap traffic of Anton Schopler and Tannen Hibschman, who are there in what are those positions further down the order. So they've managed to just about make their way through the battle for 23rd and 24th positions on the road, but each and every time it's about placement, trying to find a tiny weakness here or a tiny weakness there. They're really studying and analysing. This is a chess match here on lap 35 at 235 kilometers an hour.
It is. It is now, and you just wonder who's gonna make that last move, the one that counts and the one that cannot be countered here. Is it gonna be Nelson, Mains, Falkingham? Is it potentially Trupiano, who's now hanging out there on the back and just biding his time, waiting his time, whether it's voluntary or not remains to be seen. You can just see less and less room given on the entry to the corner each and every time. That's playing with fire. You're trying to squeeze the car on the outside, give them as little room as possible on the entry of the corner. Is Nelson then gonna repay the favor heading into 3? Not quite. And they're in that precarious position where you're not quite clear, Jake. You're not quite clear in that whether you have the overlap still or not, whether you can floor it on the exit or whether you have to give room to the outside, as Trupiano does the fastest lap.
Yeah, because Trupiano now is starting to challenge Daniel Falkingham for position. This is a critical moment of the race. This is the difference between you're racing one-on-one or you're racing as a group of 4. You can't afford to battle too hard for too long. At 145 miles an hour on the straights, tipping them into the corners with very minimal banking out there. Mains been very happy with his placement, been very happy with his positioning out there. Spencer Schmidt, just worth noting, has the black and white flag next to his name, which means he's been disqualified from the race, and so he will find himself out in its entirety and will be classified as 33rd position overall with his result. This is the second group that's trying to chase. You got Hugo Allen as basically a middleman there in terms of this one. Nate Stewart, Matteo Kunze, and Louis Beilicker all there, 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Yeah, oh, that's a massive wreck in the background. Not sure, that's Samuel Burnett at least getting involved in that one. But yeah, you mentioned that group with Stewart, Kunzer and Beilicker. None of them slouches in terms of pace. Everyone a very good driver. You need to be to run in these positions. But that's effectively a chase back now with Allen losing ground each and every lap. If they work with each other, they still have time to catch up to the back of Hugo Allen, potentially make it a fight for 5th. But Hugo Allen really in a neat position now, running all by himself, and that's not the worst place to be right now by any means. So yeah, gonna be interesting to see what happens in this pack as we see a replay of what happened to Samuel Burnett.
Well, Burnett here trying to give as much of a line as he can, and I don't think that's his fault at all. He just gets caught up and dumped over like it's the Royal Rumble in a week's time. It's very much a case of over the top rope you go. No love there. But I think the time's going to be interesting for Hugo Allen. He did a 28 flat on that last lap. Nate Stewart a 28.1. dealing with the likes of the lap down Matthew Deschênes. So I think Hugo Allen, if it stays like this, is going to be safe in 5th place so long as he keeps it out of trouble. Garrett Mains, though, back down to the inside here compared to Benjamin Nelson, looking for as much of a run as he can with 10 minutes to go. And I think this is where the gloves are going to start coming off here with 10 minutes left. It's just going to be a case of each and every place you gain is a bit more. This is Matteo Kunze up there on the top of your screen there in 7th position, because that second group, you think about 6th, 7th, 8th. These are important points from drivers who all started outside the top 10 looking to try and jump forward. 6th, 7th and 8th. They're looking to be pleased with their results.
They absolutely are, especially Nate Stewart, somebody whose first race went really down the drain. This was the race he was looking to do well in, so he's looking to scavenge as much as he can here in this race. Well, 6th place would be exactly that, up 24 in this race. So you said gloves are going to come off. That would be the point really where you're starting to get maybe a little bit tired of the battling. You're now starting to think, okay, potentially no more caution as the field is spread out. So what do I do then? What do I do? You're potentially biding your time, waiting a little bit at this point, as they all have to avoid a wreck.
That's a big one there up on the top side of the circuit there. Samuel Burnett, who just got back out again, they just managed to avoid. So the front 4 just about avoiding drama, avoiding trouble, and so still Mains from Nelson, from Falkingham, from Trupiano, they are just about avoiding what they need to, and that could have been simply disastrous if they'd got caught up in that. But the expert reflex is to go straight down to the bottom of the circuit. They've done it time and time again. We'll take another look.
Yeah, Burnett just losing it on the exit and touching the wall, and there's just contact with another lapped car hitting the rear tire, but those guys went too deep, too wide, and they managed to avoid a wreck. And they kept it too deep, too wide into the corner. Just goes to show you the kind of talent and, most important, the kind of skill that Mains, Nelson, Fockingham, Trupiano are showcasing right now. This is truly a race for the ages, and each and every one of them is worthy of this series, worthy of running in the front. But who's going to be the victor? That remains to be seen.
Well, with 8 minutes and 22 seconds left on the clock, it looks like the front two are happy to be trading those places. The interesting thing about this battle is, when does Daniel Falkingham pull the pin and get himself involved again? Garrett Mains switching back there. Trupiano's not really shown anything. He's looking to troop the colour, so to speak, and find himself the opportunity to move on up, gain third, gain second, gain first. This is a case of they allow the top two to do what they want, but when it comes right down to it, 7 minutes 50 seconds, who's going to be the bravest?
Yeah, and you can see those moves now, running behind somebody, Mains and Nelson, just changing lines, and you can see Mains there moving very close to Nelson's back, and that's potentially very dangerous, because you can get your nose cone stuck on the light that you can see on the rear of the car so easily, and that just instantly turns the car in front of you around. So I was hoping that maybe making that move a little bit earlier could be the safer bet for these guys, just to avoid any hiccups, any missed timings, any silly incidents, really. But then again, you're on it, you want to maximize the draft, and you're a racing driver, you give no quarter. And in a pack like this, it's also about intimidation, in a sense that, no, you're not trying to bully anyone out of your way, but you're trying to show that, okay, I'm not giving any quarter, you're gonna have to fight for every inch, because what you get here, you take everything that you can get here, and if you're not given anything, you have to look for other options.
Every option is important, and it's going to be about when and where. I think the way this race is going to plan out, this has been truly tactical at the front of this field. 4 cars have broken away. These 4 are going to be the ones who are going to be racing out there for the victory. More lap traffic then to navigate in front for Benjamin Nelson, who leads this one. This is Eric Norman then in 13th position, who's up 14 spots they'll have to get by, and Norman goes down low and will allow the first car through. But will this be a case of diving high or maintaining a low line? And this is not going to be ideal then around the outside for Garrett Mains. That's going to cost him a couple tenths of a second, and now it brings Trupiano's hand into play as he thought about the inside but falls back into rank and file.
Yep, one of those things where you start to really notice how much the tires are wearing out. They're suffering constantly. No, the gradient is not that much. That's helping the case, but then again, you're running all this time at speeds close or excess of 200 kilometers per hour through these long corners. They don't have much time to cool down in a straight line. It's getting worse and worse each and every lap, and you're also getting that dirty air into the mix. So these guys are suffering in terms of tires. They can't make those aggressive moves to the inside necessarily anymore, or if they do they have to plan it well in advance. So that's gonna be another factor adding into the multiple factors playing into this chess match as we have 5 minutes to go.
5 minutes to go and half a second to chase down for Daniel Falkingham. The car of Patrick Hingston has now put itself as a little bit of a blockade, stays out of the way. Through goes Trupiano then, and that's going to bring that gap out to 6.5. Suddenly, it's Mains versus Nelson up at the front of this field, and it looks like the race on for third place is going to be a sideshow at the moment unless they want to involve themselves. Different lines being tried out then. Mains liking to go low to get in the mirrors as much as he can, taking that low line, getting out of the dirty air that comes through. And really, this is the car that you look at on an oval section like this as a precursor to IndyCar. This will give you all the basic understandings of what you do in an IndyCar.
It absolutely does. You look at the road to Indy ladder, and it's really the US Pro 2010. You got the Indy Pro 2000. formerly known as the Pro Master Series and still known as a Pro Master Series. Then you got Indy Lights, and then you got IndyCar proper. So this is really the ladder that they are taking in the US Open Wheel Series to try and achieve that dream of running in Indianapolis one day, to run amongst the 33 in the Brickyard. And these guys are certainly showcasing that they're not lacking the skills nor the bravery. Jake, I hear you making those sounds. I'm almost making the same ones myself.
Garrett Mains was getting pushed and pushed and pushed, and he only had about 1.1 cars width to go and make that move for the race lead, and he got it. And now look at the dance then as they look around, because they got Hibschman who's there, Brandon William, and then Garrett Mains just pins the car through the middle of the corner and gets himself the gap he wants. And following is Benjamin Nelson doing just what he can. Falkingham has been dropped now by Trupiano, who is deciding to kick on here, looking for third place, but with 3 minutes to go, he's going to need an almighty launch off of Tannen Hibschman if he wants to try and join that group, and it would be a late charge from Trupiano if he can get there.
Yeah, I think Nelson is in a great position right now, being able to follow Mains' Seaver. Mains is strong Seaver. He is potentially weak. That run from last corner to the finish line, it's a very short one. We've seen that inside line work dividends early on in being just able to keep your position, but you can see how close Nelson is running to the wall. He wants it, but he is also showcasing those worn out front tires. He can't go any faster through there anymore. That's his limit, and the grip is going to get worse and worse with each passing lap.
Well, let's get a comparison of laps then in, as Garrett Mains did a 28.0 on that last lap. By comparison, his fastest lap was a 27.9. So they've only dropped a tenth of a second. The tyres aren't wearing with 2 minutes to go. It's more the fact that they're trying to play as a huge gaggle up in front of them with Ramon and Manis and Ranieri and Carter and Hinkson. They're all there. That's what they're up against next. Nelson trying to ping Garrett Mains, but Mains now will take the slipstream. Then from Hayden Manis, 2 minutes to go.
Yeah, and they're having to navigate this massive gaggle of cars. As you said, you saw on the previous lap trying to go for an overtake. They were dead even on the line, nothing between them. And this is potentially race deciding here. How do they deal with these lapped cars? They are getting the inside line, and you can see Nelson, they're running sort of the middle line, utilizing the track just a little bit more, getting a good exit now.
Here comes the chance then, minute and a half on the clock. Benjamin Nelson down low, nowhere to go against Chase Carter for Garrett Mains, and he will find out how tough it is, because Carter now will get a run and they'll pin it, and now they'll go either side of Chase Carter for the race lead. Garrett Mains down low.
Wow, how brave was that? He's running really wide, but just having to lift off so much on the exit of the corner to avoid running into Nelson there. So Nelson retakes that lead with 1 minute to go.
1 minute left, and they're doing 28-second lap times. This is just 2 laps to go that they have just hit. It's going to be so close when they get to the line. Benjamin Nelson needs to hold it at the moment. He's got what he wants on Garrett Mains, which is a car length and a half.
Yeah, that's what he desires, that's what he wants. There's a lapped car battle in front of them, potentially that's gonna be affecting the leaders as well. Now Mains has to pull every trick out of his extensive back to make it in this race. Let's see if the white flag is out. Yes, it is. This is the final lap.
1 lap left, and Mains is fading, and that might bring Trupiano in for second. Can he find any drive out of 2 that gives him 3 and 4? It looks like it's been timed perfectly by Benjamin Nelson. 2 different styles of racing. Here comes Trupiano. He surges down low, looking for second position. But you do it once in a caution-filled race. You do it twice in a caution-less race. Simply perfection from Benjamin Nelson, who takes the double at New Hampshire.
Wow! Showcased. We were a little bit tentative after race 1, seeing so many cautions, seeing so much going wrong. Well, everything went right for the leading group in this second race, and it goes to showcase what open wheel oval racing is at its finest. You don't necessarily need to go to Indy or Michigan or California to see these guys at their best. You need to go to New Hampshire Motor Speedway, get them some Indy Pro 2000, some Pro Mazdas, 275 horsepower behind their backs, and half an hour of spectacular, awesome, and such skilled, high-level racing, with Benjamin Nelson claiming the checkered flag.
Well, Benjamin Nelson will have the biggest smile, and, well, why not? It's burnout time for him, and it is so justly deserved with the way that he has driven an hour's worth of 2 races, and he will take maximum points over to round 2 in terms of what you need in the PT Autosport eSeries. Do not look any further than that for the perfect showcase of ability. Garrett Mains will be second in the championship, all things totted up in terms of result, but that is magical from car number 79 here today, as we will get an unofficial results score across your screen. 0.6 of a second, the margin in the end for Benjamin Nelson over Garrett Mains, proving that at the double, he can do it with cautions, he can do them without. Garrett Mains with that second. Andy Trupiano getting very close to that second place, but unable to gain much further, with Daniel Folkingham in 4th position, leading that gap away of about 8 seconds over to Hugo Allen in P5. It's then Matteo Kunze who would finish 6th ahead of Louis Beilicker in 7th. Dalton Zavadil would finish off in 8th ahead of Nate Stewart, who had to come all the way from 30th position to gain that 9th place finish, and would also be the last finisher on the lead lap. The first lap down, Mark Anthony Hinkson.
And in 11th position, it's Eric Norman ahead of Patrick Hingston. And then you got Charles Wimbley in 13th, Colton Scarretta in 14th, and Bryce Rodriguez finishing 15th. Matthew Deshane 16th, Tress Drawhorn in 17th. 2 laps down is Chase Carter, as is Aaron Ramon and Anton Schoppler.
Yeah, so now we start flicking over the next page. Connor Henry finds himself there in 21st position, with Alessandro Ranieri there in 22nd. It would then be Jacob Bradley, 23rd ahead of Hayden Manis. And then you got Tannen Hibschman 4 laps down, Brandon William, Ryan Stasny in 27th. Then it is Dustin Yang and also Christian Hines there in 29th. Noah Ingram Harrison had a tough day at the office. 30th position would be for him. And then the last drivers over the line, over 56 laps of racing. Samuel Burnett, Bryce Wire, and the disqualification then of Spencer Schmidt just 9 laps into the race. Then it would be declared overall. So that brings the racing portion in, but this now gives an opportunity for us to talk to some of our drivers here who have picked up their results. Benjamin Nelson joins me here right now. Well, Benjamin, that is something of 2 very starkly different races with the same result for you. A perfect start to the season. How was that for you as a showcase, and the contrast between the 2 races?
The first one was definitely not what we wanted to see. Is a lot of wrecks, lots of fuel saving, more than I thought there was going to be. We weren't sure how short we were, so we had to save as much as we can, and it ended up just being a coast to the finish that time. But this race had everything. Lots of, undercuts, great battles. That was a ton of fun. Kudos to Andy and Garrett and Daniel for racing with us. Man, it was such a great race. We didn't have nearly as many cautions. It was exceptional, and I'm very glad to be a part of it.
You didn't have nearly as many. We had none over the course of that second race. So that half an hour for you, dueling it out with those drivers behind. Talk about New Hampshire, getting yourself in with the Indy Pro, and really actually trying to work out what the best line was, because it looked like early on Garrett Mains had this wonderful line down on the apron. Was that something you were expecting, or was that something you copied?
Yeah, I mean, I tried it in practice. It actually does work with the Xfinity car too, so I figured with more downforce that it would really work better, and it did. So it was a really good passing thing, but it was hard to keep your momentum up, so you had to do it decisively. You couldn't just half commit to it. So we ended up undercutting each other all the time with that, but I figured out that in attempting to pass, it's actually better to not do that, because I could stick on that second groove with the better banking, and it didn't compromise my exit as much as I can complete the passes that way.
So you found the way to make the passes. You found the move that gave you your second victory out there from 2. It's the perfect start to the season. you got to be hoping that it's still going to be in your sort of ballpark by the time we come round for races 3 and 4 of this championship. What are you hoping to get as a car track combination for next week?
Well, it could be off the wall. I really don't have an expectation. I'm usually an oval guy, but road courses I've been getting into a lot more lately, so there's a lot more road courses I think that are ahead of us. I'm looking forward to whatever it is. I think they'll come up with a great one.
Well, we will certainly hope to see you there. A perfect start to the season for Benjamin Nelson in the PT Autosports eSeries on the double here today at New Hampshire.
Yep, and next up here in the commentary section, I have found myself a Garrett Mains to talk to. Garrett, 4th place in race number 1, 2nd place in race number 2. We know you as one of the most rounded racers in the iRacing scene. You can drive just about anything. How happy are you with the results today?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it was a really good points result. I don't know. I'm a little bummed about, the first race. I felt like, we had a really good chance to win that one. And with it being a caution fest, I mean, that really, I don't know, it took away our opportunity, especially once we got taken out of the lead. So just, to be able to climb back and get good points on everybody that I felt like would be a contender when we go to a road course. It's nice to build that padding there. We got a good second result as well. But man, overall, I felt like both races, I had the opportunity to win. They were right there. And I hate to say I felt like it was sort of out of my control. The first one, obviously, like, what could I do there? But the second one, I just had 2 choices. It was a coin flip, go to the apron to pass these lap cars or go to the middle. And I felt like if I went to the middle, there was just a higher chance of getting screwed by one of the 3 in front of me. And I chose the one lane I knew they wouldn't be in, and I made up like 5 cars and caught them side by side on exit because they got tight. And that just allowed Benjamin to get the run there on me. And then once again, just I was in the wrong place, wrong time. Lap car didn't see me coming and went from the top to the middle basically and just pinched me. Had to lift, and it was just really hard there at the end of the run when we got to being on the old tires. Like, it was nice to see the development, but there was a significant disadvantage to being in dirty air for the last 15 laps. It was very hard to make something happen. You had to get a clean lane. And we just seemed to be rendered in traffic, and it was really who could work it better. Sometimes traffic giveth and taketh away, and I felt like it kind of took it away from me today. But, overall, Benjamin obviously was well-deserving to win this race. I mean, he was keeping me honest the whole time. I felt like I was in the right position to make it happen. Just 5 laps shorter, and I think we would have been in it.
Yeah, it's a small margin, isn't it, out there in this kind of racing. So, Garrett, let's talk about that contrast between races 1 and 2. We saw race 1 that was obviously very caution-filled, very broken, hard to get into the groove. So race 2, you now suddenly have a practically a caution-free race. So you need to talk about tire wear. How difficult was it going into that race when you don't necessarily have the data, have the information on how the tires are going to develop, how the car is going to progress in terms of handling and such?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think a lot of us have no experience in this car. I mean, it's not one of the most driven, so it was kind of just guess as you go and figure it out as you race. But I don't know. I mean, I kind of had the mindset of let's not blow the tires off from the get-go. It's just kind of hard to gauge. I mean, when you're in the lead, I almost thought of a dirt race, I was able to figure out what was working to stay in the lead, but I had no idea what they had tried and did they make a mistake when they tried the bottom lane, or I didn't know how to pass as well. I felt like when I came through the pack and got the lead at the very beginning, I was making the first swing and people just hadn't really figured out what to do about it yet. But the longer you sit in the front, the less you know about how to get back by somebody. And once that tire wear really developed, I mean, I felt like I led probably 40 laps, or at least was in a controlling position for the middle 40 laps of this race. Just didn't have a lot of time to develop knowledge. So when I got behind the 8-ball and just a really bad decision, I tried to cross him over in a spot that just didn't make any sense for me. Took me out of a controlling position. I then had to relearn everything. I was in dirty air. I had extreme tire wear in comparison to what I'd been dealing with out front. The car handled totally different. And I didn't have like, a learning period. It wasn't gradual for me. It was like, okay, now you have nothing. Your front doesn't want to cut. Where can I go to get some clean air, to get some rotation? And I kind of had to learn on the fly, and I felt like the way I was positioned at the end, I didn't really have the time nor the opportunity with the way it unfolded.
Yeah, it's a very difficult situation where you have to essentially guess as you go, make the best educated guess. Even with all that experience you have, can't imagine what it was like for the less experienced guys, really. But Garrett Maines, still a solid point scoring result. So whatever comes up next, I think you're quite confident that you'll be one of the better drivers, no matter what is coming up.
I appreciate that. I think this was a really good result. Looking forward, I mean, I was telling myself in the first heat, I was like, it's just points day. I'm ahead of who I feel like I need to be ahead of. Just getting as many as possible, not taking myself out of contention, and being where I needed to be for the rest of the day. I mean, that ended up working out really well. But huge shout out to Benjamin for grabbing the win there. It was awesome throwing down with him. That was phenomenal racing throughout. I know Dan was up there too. It was a lot of fun. Just, we had so many 3-wide battles there. But also want to give a shout out to Wigan Water Technologies for their support this season. Really excited to have them on, and Linux and MCU Body for their help as well.
Yeah, and thank you, Gareth, for the interview, and good luck next race.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
So there we have it there. Garrett Maines joining us then with a second place finish there in that race too. But it was a day of traversing the order for Andy Trupiano, who joins us right now. Andy, from 24th to 6th and then from 6th to 3rd. We start then with qualifying, which would have seemed like an eternity ago from all the racing that we had, and the IndyCar style qualifying at the Indy 500 here at New Hampshire. How was that to try and get 4 clean laps down on the board?
Yeah, so it wasn't too bad. I just screwed up, like, crossing the line. I barely clipped the wall crossing the line on my last lap, and that was like a killer because it was a solid run and it's just a little teeny tiny small detail last second type of thing. I really should have been able to avoid that, but it was unfortunate. But it was a lot of work cutting through the field after that, but in the end it all worked out, so can't complain too much.
Well, it certainly did. Talk us through then your race one, because it seemed like there was a caution here, there, and everywhere. You had to try and basically do landmine avoidance through the opening race, but you found yourself up inside the top 10. How important was it for you to maximise a caution-filled race like that and to take advantage of everyone else's misery?
Yeah, it was huge. Honestly, I wasn't sure how it was going to play out for me for a while there, because I was actually caught up in one of the first incidents. Then I had to go to the very back with an EOL, so I was like lining up 30th or so, and somehow I was just able to cut through the traffic on the one green flag run we had, and I was able to set myself up for the end pretty good. Then I got a little bit lucky with a couple of the incidents there, and it just wound up that I ended up in 6th, and it's a pretty good day overall.
Talk us through your race two then, because completely different in terms of what you had from your race one. Very much a case of trying to battle, maintaining the pack, and really bridging that gap, that group of 8, and seeing that splinter off and you being on the right side of the splinter. How important was that for you to be inside that top 4 racing with 3 incredibly talented drivers like Daniel, like Garrett, and also like Benjamin?
Yeah, that was great. That race played out a lot more like I would have liked the first one too. I spent the first half, 3/4 of the race just kind of trying to set myself up for the end. So I was really just trying to help the top 4 split off from the rest, and I was also trying to hang on to my tires a bit. I was really happy because I set myself up for the end almost exactly the way I wanted to. I just needed to execute a couple of those passes there just a little bit better to have a shot at the win.
So the opportunity's there for you. Very quickly before we let you go, you got 2 weeks now before the next race comes into play. It's one of these championships where you don't know until an hour before. How do you as a driver look to prepare yourself for the next race meeting?
You know, honestly, there's not much you can do. You just got to take it day by day and control what you can control. It's like, you know, the next race I can come in and I can be the guy to beat, or I can be the 30th quickest guy. So just got to pace yourself and just try and maximize everything you can when the day hits. So
We hope the day hits for you then in 2 weeks' time. Andy Trupiano joining us then, going from 24th to 6th, and then from 6th to 3rd over the course of racing action that we've had. That is going to be the curtain closer, though, here from us from New Hampshire Motor Speedway. If you live free and race, well, that's what we saw absolutely beautifully plastered over race number 2 here with us on the Global Sim Racing channel. If you want to take a moment to catch all of the amazing shows that's coming up, you can always do so on it, but want to give a massive thanks to the team who's got it done. There's your next shows up on your screen. Of course, got the Classic Lotus Grand Prix over at the Algarve, which will be coming up, of course, tomorrow. And then, of course, we've got Porsche Owners Club. The Driving Club will be joining us then for the first time over at Road Atlanta. And then, of course, your Grand Prix legends will be back on February 2nd at Summit Point Raceway. Well, of course, you've got to give a thanks to the team from Ossian Pihako, who's been along with me, Christian Deploy in the director's chair and the cameras, which are provided by Dougie Beard. This has been a Genesis Extreme production here on the Global Sim Racing channel. In terms of the next race that's coming up here with us, it's going to be with the PT Autosport eSeries. We don't know what it's going to be. We do know an hour before the race what it will be, but we do know that it will be on February 8th. And you will want to try and jump and join us. It will be at the same time as this one here at 5:45 UTC, 12:45 Eastern. So you'll want to jump on and join with us for your evening or afternoon's worth of action coming forward. But as far as things go, it's very difficult in a series where you don't have much in terms of time to prepare to be perfect. But only one driver can say they were here today, and they will walk away with a pretty healthy championship lead in the back pocket. It was Benjamin Nelson's time, and he will be someone who will be thinking, you know what? It's my moment to try and stamp a mark. He's proven now he's the yardstick, and everyone is now going to try and take his championship lead. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time for more amazing sim racing action with your PT Autosport eSeries.